Experts say that the conspiracy belief is correlated with the lower levels of analytical thinking and lower levels of education. It is also associated with the tendency to overestimate the likelihood of co-occurring events. So, what are the actual psychological explanations of conspiracy theories and beliefs? On this episode, we are gonna talk about it. Welcome back to Day Talk, fellow talkers. And as I said before, on this episode, we're gonna talk about the psychological reasons why conspiracy theories and conspiracy beliefs are so popular and why actually people have tendencies to believe even the little more crazier tinfoil stories. As always, let's welcome our guest host of the week, the Strike the Truther from Strike the Truth blog, Miss Alexandra. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Do you know about these theories yourself? Have you come across and actually investigated these matters, maybe related to your blog or your other interests?
Yes, I've definitely come across this a bunch of times. And yeah, I can say I agree with the theories maybe behind them. Let's see.
Yeah, well, I have to remind you guys out there that bunch of this stuff might be pretty offensive. And as we are talking about this thing, of course, some of these things are reflected to at least to me, and Alexandra can explain if some of the stuff is reflected to her. I'm meaning that I am a huge fan of all these kinds of tinfoil stuff and conspiracy beliefs, if you will, and even sometimes have tendencies to believe some of them myself. So I guess no one is spared.
Yes, I also believe my own conspiracy theories. Some of them come as utter rubbish, but there's some very convincible ones.
Yes, and what I was about also mention is that not always all conspiracy theories are proven to be false. Some of them are actually hardcore facts. So we are not here to debunk or devalue anyone's opinion on matters, because we never know what might be tomorrow true. But yeah, before we go more into this subject, as always, we would like you to leave us a like. If you're a conspiracy fan, if you're not conspiracy fan, leave us a like too. And also, third thing, leave us a like if you have watched or liked any of our previous episodes. Also, write down the comments what you think about conspiracy theories, what might be your favorite ones, or are they utter hogwash, all of them. Then after that, hit subscription button and leave us a notification bell ring by hitting the notification button, so you won't miss any of our even crazier and crazier episodes that air every single Friday. I believe we have already more than 120 episodes out there. So we were talking about the angle of psychological or psychology of conspiracy theories, and this is based actually on a paper by scientists, and I leave the link there. It's pretty short but full of all knowledgeable information. And basically the conspiracy beliefs and the reasons why people believe in them in this study is tied to three different subjects or topics, if you will. And the first one would be called epistemic reason, and that would be the one's understanding of one's environment. And first we're gonna go into that one. Maybe we tackle them all separately here. How does that sound to you, Alexandra?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
So understanding one's environment seems like a logical thing to do. people always try to understand their surroundings, so they have some sort of feel of control or sense what's going on. And this paper is saying that finding causal explanations for events is a core part of building a stable, accurate, and internally consistent understanding of the world. That doesn't sound too bad, does it?
No, I think it sounds pretty reasonable. Everyone wants to understand what's going on around them, their environment, their location.
Yeah. And how does the world work and why things are happening like this? And this might become a problem when information or explanations are unavailable. So then it starts to bother some people more than the other ones. I think you have had such experiences yourself. I think we all have. That something isn't available and it's starting to get frustrating. Then the other thing might be that the information that we get is actually conflicting. We get two different or even three or four different information of the simple or at least some sort of a matter. Finding meaning when event seems random. So as we know, there are things that occur that are random, but some people more than others don't accept the randomness of things, and they push to find explanations even then when things would be clearly random. They just don't accept them, and this is tied to this understanding of one's environment. How do you feel about random events? Do you believe in randomness, or do you think that if something happens once, it might be a coincidence, but 2 or 3 times it's a pattern and there must be something behind it?
Well, I'm a spiritualist, I guess you can say it. So I do believe in synchronicities and fate. But of course, there's also randomness, and there's this process of deja vu that people experience all the time. That there's something like, let's say, an event happening that they feel like it happened before, maybe sometimes more than once. And from what I was reading, this deja vu feeling comes to people at least once a month on average. So yes, to a certain degree, I do accept that random things happen. But once it happens more than once, maybe we need to look at other reasons why they're happening.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Then the next one here is defending one's beliefs or disconfirmation. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that one is very interesting. And it's not necessarily tied to conspiracies, but one example would come to me is religion, where people really try to defend their own beliefs in, religious beliefs, or maybe like philosophical beliefs of law, like you have, I'm a vegetarian, for example, and I kind of fall in the middle between the vegans and people who eat meat. And usually it's the kind of vegans who are very vocal about animal rights. And then you have the people who eat meat who are defending their point of view. And, those two are very conflicting, but each try to get in their own kind of camp. And at least for me personally, I don't really talk about being a vegetarian or why I'm a vegetarian unless someone really asks me.
Right.
So I'm kind of a more neutral ground.
So when we talk about these more hardcore beliefs, like let's talk about like a vegan who has these really hardcore beliefs and are basically defending their beliefs and disconfirmation. Then they explain the environment or understand the environment by, killing animals is bad. So it could go even when it goes too far, a bit conspiratorial, and it would be then understanding one's environment, this epistemic motive could be really, really high on such things. And then, people start to see things through their beliefs and their eyes, and then it's being pretty hard to convince them otherwise. And this is borderlining this explanation to these conspiracy theories. And of course, these kinds of things come from political matters and societal matters and stuff. I just mentioned this as an example here. But if we move a bit forward with this epistemic motive, I'll jump ahead here, so people who read the paper at the same time or after this can go more into details in this one. But the research results actually suggest that the belief in conspiracy theories is stronger when the motivation to find patterns in the environment is experimentally heightened. It is also stronger among the people who habitually seek meaning and patterns in the environment, including believers in paranormal phenomena. And this could be some other believers too, as we pointed out. It also appears to be stronger when events are especially large in scale, 9/11, for example, or significant, and leave people dissatisfied with the mundane, small-scale explanation. I think this is the core of this epistemic thing here. And they mentioned these significant large-scale events like 9/11, and for me, I must admit, I was really deep digging into those 9/11 things, and the explanations that official explanation is official, of course, sounds immediately like tinfoily thing that official is wrong or something. I have no expertise to say otherwise, but it sounds just so, I think, as this is saying, dissatisfying or mundane, that these bunch of these guys just went to flight schools, hijacked planes, and flew these planes into the buildings, and all of the surveillance of United States, one of the biggest military powers in military intelligence wise, also couldn't stop it. So I think this is really hitting me where it hurts, this one.
I think their mundane maybe isn't the most correct word. I think a lot of people, for example, like you mentioned 9/11, it's more of they don't understand why someone would do such a thing. And it goes back to when we were talking about like Richard Ramirez and like why people are so compelled to be so evil. You know, a lot of these conspiracy theories also come from people not understanding how certain events or maybe people could be so depraved. You know, like we're constantly surprised about how bad the world can be, basically. And
so,
we seek answers to that we try to come up with a logical explanation that maybe, we can't accept that people or events can just be bad, and that's the only reason why they happen. We try to reason that this happened because of this and this, not because someone is bad or something bad just happened and it's just that it's bad. There's nothing else.
I have to contest that a little bit. So basically people wouldn't believe in this official, real, whatever, the official explanation of 9/11 that these hijackers did it and they were like Al-Qaeda terrorists. That would be less evil than their own government killing their own citizens within their own borders in order to get a pretext for war or hide some vast amounts of money or something that was claimed there too. So like, I think it would be more easier to believe that these terrorists would be that evil that they would do it, more so than your own government would do it to you.
But I think like people wouldn't think that their own government would do it, or they wouldn't believe in that conspiracy unless that government happened to be questionable.
But this is the
So I
conspiracy
think it,
theory with
yeah,
9/11.
yeah, I am familiar with that. That they did it just to start this war in Afghanistan for the oil.
Well, yeah.
Um, yeah, but again, like it's also started because people don't trust their government. So you know, it goes back again to that answer, seeking that answer, why this happened. Because, it seems fantastical, but more believable to some people that their government is just greedy and wanting money than just some random people being bad
Yeah,
for the
why would
sake
they
of
hate us?
being bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
I guess, yeah. There's a point there too, and I'm not, I'm not claiming what happened. I don't know. I just have to go with the information that we officially have. What happened in 9/11, but there is a one deep rabbit hole if somebody wants to take a jump there. Okay, let's talk about then the next one, the existential, which is basically one being in control of their own environment. And this existential motive, basically causal explanations, serve the need for people to feel safe and secure in their environment and to exert control over their environment. So the need to control the events, what happens to you in surroundings, is a strong base motive to this second uh, cornerstone, if you will, for this conspiracy theory belief. For example, people who lack instrumental control may be afforded some compensatory sense of control by conspiracy theories because they offer them the opportunity to reject official narratives and feel that they possess an alternative account. And these conspiracy theories or conspiracy beliefs may promise to make people safer as form of a cheat detection. So people who have this motive really strong back in their mind or back in their spine, I'd say, can claim by them at least spot untrustworthy people, the liars, and basically I think this is the people who don't agree with you, or they try to force from these people's perspective the official narrative to you, which sounds fishy. And if they don't accept the idea of this explanation, then immediately these people who are offering these are playing to the other guys, the bad guys, or the conspirators. So they are deemed untrustworthy. What do you think about this? Does this claim of existential motive make sense to you?
I think it does because, everyone wants to be in control of their environment. They want to feel like, they rule the ship of their lives, per se. And I think we can definitely see this happening a lot more, what happened in the past year. That, it's so much information coming all the time and so many theories thrown around, but at the same time, it's been very conflicting and very confusing for people. So I think really
yeah,
that the past year is a good example for this existential motive. What people are believing, what they're not believing, what they're touting as fact, even though it's been debunked by scientists quite well, but still nobody believes it.
I believe you're right, because like the past year, 2020 and now 2021, the beginning, at least first 5-6 months, people don't have that much control, and these people who feel strongly about this sense of control that gives them security, as was explained, might be feeling like empowerment from these kinds of things, that they have to set the narrative straight. They have to seize the control back, and we have seen crazy things happening. United States, we see these kinds of like riots and demonstrations where people are marching against the vaccinations and the established science or scientists, and of course these people from these conspiracy believers point of view are part of the conspiracy. And we know about these microchip bullshits that we have heard, and all these kinds of crazy stuff. And I think, as you mentioned, this comes strongly through because of the lack of control that these 2 years that we are now going through have caused or have, bring forward.
Yeah, and these things can also be seen, for example, in countries that have this kind of history where they haven't had control. So at least I can say, for example, Romania, where I was born,
Right.
Back in the communist times when the Communist Party was controlling everything about people's lives, where they were going, what they were watching on TV, how much light they had, and even what food they were eating and how much money they had. In those countries, now you see the most misinformation about what's happening right now, and people are tending to believe it more than, let's say, somewhere like in Finland, where people are very trustworthy of the government. And I would say conspiracy theories here hold less water than in the previous Soviet bloc countries. Because here people have more information, have accessed more clear news, and I think also the media and the government is more open and willing to hold discussions and involve the people compared to the other countries where maybe the government is more closed and there's a lot more speculation going amongst the population.
Right. So now we're basically going a bit to the next topic, but before we go there, how would you characterize the Romanian education level, and is it a country with strong beliefs of the, I don't know how to put it, like the old ways? Like, do they have like a strong a sense of history and like beliefs of the old ways, the habits and the countryside and stuff, or is it just that the general distrust because of the communist era governments?
Well, much like in Russia, for example, I would say also maybe previous communist countries, in Romania you have a split of the younger people, let's say someone my generation, so maybe like 20s, 30s, or people who were born after 89. In Romania, there's very good education. Most people have a university degree, they have master's degree, very good jobs, speak many languages. So those younger people, they don't tend to believe a lot of this conspiracy theories and misinformation. But the people who have lived through the communist regime, like the older people, let's say people who are like 45 and over, those people tend to trust the government very little, tend to believe more in these kind of old wives' healings, which still exists in Romania, more than they would believe in like modern medicine. And because of the communist regime and how that affected their worldview is why they are more into believing about these conspiracy theories, because they've spent a lot of their lives, maybe even growing up, not having access to the kind of education that we expect today, because a lot of people back in those times were doing this, like, let's say 10, 12 classes, or like what you have up to Lukio here in Finland, and then they were sent straight away to a job assigned to them by the government.
Right.
And only the elite had access to university or had access to traveling outside of Romania. So those people had more of an open view of the world compared to maybe those people who were stuck in, let's say they have a basic education, then you get sent off to work in a mine or in a factory. And, maybe some people were taught to be a teacher, but they were only allowed to learn a certain thing what the Communist Party wanted them to learn. They weren't allowed to open their worldview and learn about science and history in the way that we learn now.
But yeah, the third cornerstone is a social motives, or the social motives. And it reads like this: conspiracy theories valorize the self and in-group by allowing blame for negative outcomes to be attributed to others. So the in-group, the people who has the right knowledge or think the right way are the good guys, and all the negative, the contradictory information comes from the outside that is clearly tainted. Members of groups who have objectively low status, low versus high status, of their ethnicity or income are more likely to endorse conspiracy theories. People on the losers versus winners side of political processes also appear more likely to have belief in conspiracy theories. Conspiracy belief has also been linked to prejudice against powerful groups and those perceived as enemies. So I think there are countless of these kinds of social motive examples, even from the last year. Let's say the United States elections, when the presidential elections, when the other side lost clearly with all metrics. I'd say it was like contested in courts and stuff, and it was investigated. The other side, the Republicans, lost, and still they didn't admit the defeat. They claimed all of these wrongdoings in the election systems and triggered elections and all that kind of bull. And what did we saw in the first week of 2021? The riot and the uprising in Capitol Hill. So it actually, this in-group who had the knowledge of these wrongdoings tried to, in a way, occupy the place where the legislation and the country is being run from. And this was caused, I think, by the strong social motive that is characterized to be one of the cornerstones in the psychology of conspiracy beliefs. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree about this winners versus losers. And I would have to say about the kind of socioeconomic class differences, I think that, for example, people who come, like, let's say, old money, who are born into power and wealth, never really have to question that they would ever lose that. They're so sure of their position in this world that they don't need to believe in conspiracy theories, because they kind of know how the world is. They're kind of, in a way, privy to a lot of information that maybe people who are like normal people or middle class or, that kind of thing, I don't want to say too much about class, maybe not privy to. So maybe that's why you have this kind of split. And then, of course, people kind of who are born in poverty, who have less control over their surroundings, because let's say, for example, a homeless person doesn't know where they're sleeping in the night. They don't have access to food and shelter in a way that someone with a job and normal income have. They would need more kind of, they would need an explanation to feel more in control. And again, it goes back to that existential motive. That, the more sure of your circumstances, the less you need to ascribe to an outside influence. So one thing I was reading about today in preparation for this topic was that scientists are saying that people who need outside influences for control are more likely to believe in conspiracy theories than people who have internal need for control. So this would be like people who blame outside influences for their circumstances or bad things happening in their lives, versus people who say, okay, it's my fault this happened, or I contributed to this factor. It's people who blame things like the government is corrupt and this is why I don't get a job. I was born in poverty, so I can never get out of it. Instead of someone who says maybe, okay, I was born in poverty, but I can work hard and I can climb into another circumstance that's better for me. So
basically people who see or victimize themselves or see themselves as victims of the society or some group or, the group who holds power or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, basically that.
Yeah.
They blame someone else for what's happening in their lives.
That makes a lot of sense. The last line here on this social motive is basically that, or the last idea, that conspiracy belief is associated with narcissism, an inflated view of oneself that requires external validation and is linked to paranoid ideation.
Yeah, I could say that, and a few examples that spring to mind is, for example, Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Who goes around touting every conspiracy under the sun as truth, and really pushing his debunked messages across the world. And another one, which doesn't really link to conspiracy, but it's on the same vein, is, for example, cults. In a cult, you usually have a cult leader who needs all these people to basically reflect back to them their beliefs. Like you have Charles Manson, who was always saying about this helter-skelter and how that will happen.
Yeah, and these people also, these cults, and they have conspiracies and conspiracy theories. That's for sure, because like they keep their in-group really like tight, and all the pressure that comes from the outside, like their relatives that try to take their daughters or sons, away because they're worried about what's happening in the cult. They are painted as, like a suppressive persons, like the Scientology is doing. And Scientology actually like is all about conspiracy theories from outside. The outside world is bad. We try to help everyone, but these bad people are trying to destroy our stuff and our operations. So definitely, I think this thing is tied also to conspiratory beliefs within the cults. So understanding one's environment, being in control of one's environment, and a positive image of oneself and one's social group are the cornerstones that are the basis of the psychology of conspiracy beliefs. What do you think there on the other side of the screen? Have you noticed yourself going along these cornerstones? Do you have conspiracy beliefs? Tell us, because we do. And hey, leave us a like, leave us comments, hit that subscription button and that notification bell so you won't miss any of our messed up crazy episodes that are airing every Friday. So thanks again, fellow talkers, and see you next time.